If you just hit blind on the light board, it should all come back. Oh. Rethink group. Blind up on the right. It's a button. There we go. All right. How you guys doing? Good. Sorry, some technical difficulties there. We're starting a new series, Into the Wild. How many of you have gone on an adventure before? Yeah, where'd you go?
I don't know.
You don't know? So you didn't go on an adventure then? Yeah. What are some of the adventures you guys have gone on? Where have you gone, traveled to? Tonto National Forest. That's awesome. How long were you there? Did you camp? No? All right, just went there? Skip. All right, go ahead. Mount Lemon. How's that? What'd you do there? Hiked? You drove to Alaska? That's quite an adventure. What? Micronesia? Petrified Forest. See, we have this aspect in us that we love adventures. At least I do. And there's something like exciting about seeing something new or experiencing a new place and being able to experience stuff you've never maybe seen before, especially when it's like nature and it's beautiful. And like, how many people have been to the Grand Canyon? Half of you? Have you? How many were like, whoa, this is pretty cool? Yeah? How many were like, this is all right? Some of you? Because if you think about it, if you go to the Grand Canyon, it's literally just a giant hole in the earth that we're like, Arizona, we are so proud of our giant rock canyon. We're like, it's not even a mountain. It's reverse. It's a big hole in the ground. And we're so proud of it. And a lot of times, because we live in Arizona, if you've seen it a couple times, you're just like, whatever, it's not a big deal. But there are people that come and they're like, come to see it. And I've been to it a couple times. And the first time I thought was like, wow, this is pretty cool. It's really beautiful here and everything. And the weather was really nice. And then like my second time we were there, we're hanging out. And I'm kind of like, yep, dirt, giant hole in the ground. And there are these people that were from the East Coast. And they were like, this is amazing. And I'm like, what? Like, it's just a hole in the ground. Like, we could have done this ourselves. We just take a lot of explosive stuff. I can make another one of these, right? Like I was trying, it doesn't make sense to me, but to them, this was a whole new type of scenery. This was a whole new experience for them. And we went in like January, so it was cold, right? But January where they were at, it's like 12 feet of snow. So they were like in shorts. They thought it was amazing. And it was a different perspective on life. They had a whole different experience of what life was like, what the scenery was like, what the weather was like, all that type of stuff. And so as we go through this, we're going to talk about the adventure that we get to go on as we walk through our Christian life. It is an adventure. It's not this boring, like, just do what I tell you, behave this certain way, and we're good to go. It's an adventure. So if you have your Bibles, we're going to flip to right at the beginning, Genesis chapter 12. Genesis chapter 12. And we're going to be talking about Abram, who eventually becomes Abraham. And we're going to talk about God calling him to go and to start this adventure. Have you ever wanted to start a new project or maybe start a new sport or a new club or play an instrument and you really wanted to but you didn't know how to start? Has anybody ever been there? You just didn't know how to get started. Like, man, that sounds like such a cool idea. Or maybe you know how to start. It's really simple. You just need to buy the instrument and start practicing. But that takes a lot of work to get to the point where you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. How many people have, maybe the parents have bought you an instrument or they bought you, art supplies or something so that you would start a hobby and you tried a little bit and you weren't very good at it, so you quit. You're like, that was too hard, I'm out, right? We're easy to be like, that adventure takes too much work. I don't want to go down that road. And we're going to see through this series how difficult our walk with God is, but how it's an adventure that's worth it, because when we get to that final destination, there's nothing that compares to what we get to experience as we walk through this journey together. So, just a short section of verses today. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 12, starting in verse 1. We're going to read verses 1 through 4. And it says this: Now the Lord said to Abram, remember, eventually Abraham, same guy, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. 75 years old. Check this out. We're going to break this down a little bit. God is talking to Abram. And here's what he says: go away from here where you're comfortable and you're cozy. Go away from home. And did you notice he doesn't tell him where he's going? He says, go from your country. And then he says, to the land that I will show you. His first command was go. Where I show you. The amount of trust that was needed for this was huge. Like he's saying, hey, I've got this great adventure for you. And you're like, sweet, where are we going? Don't worry about it. How many people would be driven crazy by not knowing where you're going? Yeah? If your family was like, we're going on a family vacation, and you're like, yes, let's go. Where are we going? And they're like, don't worry about it. You'd be like, no, I need to know. Like, I need to know what to pack. Because if we're going to Antarctica, shorts and a tank top are not going to work, right? But if we're going to Disneyland, like, I don't want, a big, heavy jacket because it's going to be really, really hot there. You want to know. You want to be prepared. And also, we really, need to know things. Does anybody else just needs to know everything? Like, oh, I hate surprises. Right? And so you're like, I need to know where we're going. That's totally me. So if God was like, Ricky, all right, you're going to pack up everything and you're going to go. I'll be like, sick. I'm ready to go. Where are we going? Don't worry about it. No, I'm not going. No, not until you tell me where. Right? That would be me. And we're seeing Abram. He's just like, he's like, okay, where are we going? But look at the promises and the reason that he has this comfort to be able to go on this journey. What's he say? He says, and I will make of you a great nation. Like, okay, this guy, he's like, hey, you're going to be over a great nation. That's a pretty cool promise, right? Like, you're going to be a pretty big deal. And he keeps going, and he says, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. So God is saying, I'm going to be on your side. I'm going to be there for you. I will be your protection. I will be the one that guides you. And those that are with you, I will bless, and those that are against you, I will curse. They're starting to build this confidence in Abram of like, I can do this. God, if God is the one that's going to call the shots and be in control, and he's going to be the one that, I just have to trust in him, that's scary, but I think I can do it if this is what it means. And then he continues, and it says, so Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old. Now imagine this. Age and stuff was a little different back then, and all this other stuff. But imagine, you've lived most of your life, and now all of a sudden you feel, and God is calling you to a new journey. You've done, 20, 30 years in a career. I know it's far to think about, but think you're old, and you're about to retire, and you're like, yes, I made it. And now God's like, nope, there's a new journey. There's a new adventure we're starting. That would be really hard. You'd be like, I just got to the point where I was comfortable doing what I was doing. And God's like, nope, there's something new for you. Come on this adventure with me. It's scary, but it's good. It's really, really good. See, me and Erica love to go on adventures. We've gone to Sedona, we've gone to Prescott. We just go do fun stuff and go hang out and do whatever we can to explore things. And we really enjoy it when we can get away. But sometimes you can't get out of town, or you can't get 10 minutes from your house because of whatever, and you're busy and stuff like that. So yesterday we had kind of an awkward day off, and so we were like, we really needed to clean our house. So we cleaned our house, and we were like, we are going to go to Dutch Bros, because we love Dutch Bros, and that's an adventure for us. We're like, we're going to go on our little Dutch Bros date adventure and have a great time. And do you have that picture? So yesterday we decided to go to Dutch Bros, and this happened. This is my tire. I don't know if you can see. It doesn't really look like a tire anymore. That part up there is way up there is just destroyed. So we were heading on our way to Dutch Bros, and Dutch Bros is like 10 minutes from our house. It wasn't a long adventure, right? And we were like, we're going. Getting some caffeine. It's going to be a great day. Erica was excited because they have new shine in their drinks, so she was going to get this glitter explosion of a drink, and we were like heading there, right? And I'm on the phone with my dad because we left the gas station, and fun twist in the adventure, I'm turning out of a gas station, and my dad was turning left to head towards his house, so I rolled down the window and screamed at him, and I scared him. It was hilarious. And then he called me, so I'm on the phone with my dad, and I'm driving, and all of a sudden, like, the truck doesn't feel like it's going very fast anymore. Like, I'm hitting the gas, but it's like we're slowing down, and I'm like, Dad, I gotta go. Something's wrong with the truck. And he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I gotta go. And all of a sudden, the truck is like, and we're like shaking back and forth, and I'm like looking at Erica like, what is happening? And I'm like, I think we just had a blowout. I gotta go. So like I hang up, and I'm like kind of driving, and I'm like, I don't know what to do, like, because we're on the freeway, and there's nowhere to pull off on the side yet, and I'm like, all right, we're going for it. So like we went a little further till there was a point where we could pull off, and we pulled off, and I looked, and like this is what I saw, and I was like, this was not the adventure I thought we were going to go on today. I was looking forward to a nice, comfortable drive to go get my drink, and I was going to go back home and sit in my giant house that we're living in, maybe sit by the pool or sit in the air conditioning and have a nice, comfortable time. Does that sound good to everybody else, right? Nobody was around. It would have been great. And unfortunately, this is what happened instead. So our adventure took this drastic turn where all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, like we can't even afford Dutch Bros now because we have to pay for a new tire, right? So I'm freaking out and was like, I don't know what to do. It's like 12,000 degrees outside. We're sitting on the side of the road. And so I'm like, do I call AAA to come help? For those of you that don't know, like tires and stuff, this is a 20-inch tire. So my truck has all 20-inch tires. Well, my spare is an 18-inch tire. So if I were to put my spare on, it wouldn't really fit, and my truck would be like this, like we'd be driving down the road like this. So I was like, I don't really know if I want to take the time to do that. Do I just get it towed? So I'm sitting on the side of the road, and I'm like, and Erica stays in the truck because she was like, he's probably freaking out there. She was being smart, and I was just like staring at the tire like, and I'm like kind of looking at cars pass, and cars are just looking at me, and it's like, I don't know what to do. I've never had to do this before. So I had no idea. This is a total new experience for me. And finally I figure out that right next to the Dutch Bros is a discount tire, which is where we got my tires from. So I'm like, I can make it, right? It's 0.4 miles. But I can only go about 5 miles an hour with this thing because the whole truck is doing this. Da-dum, da-dum. Every time it rotates around. And we drove the 0.4 miles on the side of the road at 5 miles an hour. And cars are like passing us, like honking. And then eventually we had to get in the left turn lane. So I like get over, and I'm like calling, so like my dad again, like, hey, we're safe. And Erica's sitting next to me, and the guy like pulls up next to us, and he like waves in the window. He's like, you have a flat tire. And we're like, no, duh, like the truck is like this. Like, of course they have a flat tire, like we don't know. So this adventure of 10 minutes all of a sudden turned into 2 hours, right? We finally get the truck to Discount Tire, and it ended up being amazing. See, it wasn't the adventure that I had planned. I had planned something nice, easy, and comfortable. But we ended up getting a discount tire. The tire was still under warranty. I only had to pay $36 instead of $200 for the tire. The guy was great. I sat and talked to him about church a little bit. He asked what we did, told him I was a youth pastor, all this other stuff. So it was a really fun conversation. We decided, we got 2 hours to wait. So we walked, and we still got our Dutch Bros, and we walked to Lowe's, and we just walked through Lowe's because that's what adults do, and it was weird. It was the first time we'd done that together. We picked out paint colors for a house we don't have. It was great. It was a blast. See, but in the moment of crisis, when our tire blew out, I had two options. I could trust God's plan, and I could say, you know what? This is not the adventure I thought I was going on. But I'm going to continue to trust in you, God. Wherever you take us, we'll go. And we're going to trust in you. Or I could just freak out because I wasn't in control and it wasn't what I had planned. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I was standing on the side of the road and cars were passing us at 70 miles an hour and I was looking at this tire, I really wanted to respond with freaking out and like throwing things. I had to step back, take a breath, and go, okay, God, you're in control. You're in control. I have a perfect plan for my life. And most of you, even if you're in junior high, you have ideas of what you want to do with your life. Your dream car probably is like $200,000, $300,000. Don't worry. One day it'll be like a Volkswagen Bug. And you'll be like, I'll just be happy if it runs and has AC. But you have to trust that he knows where your adventure is leading. And it's really, really hard. Abram here is going, okay, God, you're calling me to something great. He says, your name will be known by the nations. It will be blessed. You're calling me to something great. But in order to do that, I have to trust you and I have to start the adventure. So earlier I asked, how many of you have been given things, a gift or whatever, and you started it and it was too hard and you gave up? You gave up on the journey. You gave up on an adventure. You all have different gifts and talents that you have the ability to honor God and glorify God with. He gave you these gifts in order to glorify him. He's calling you on this journey, this adventure with him, and together, let's walk through this adventure together using our gifts to glorify him in ways that other people can't. I can't play instruments. This is not where I am gifted at. So I'm not going to go up and try and be this amazing musician. I can practice and I can probably be decent at it, but I'm not gifted like other people are. And that's okay. But you have to listen to where God is saying, this is where I want you to go. This is the adventure that I'm calling you on. Joy in him and the rest around you, and let's go on this adventure and let's serve God and let's honor him through our actions. The adventure is hard at times. Sometimes you're just trying to take a nice little stroll to Dutch Bros, and instead your tire explodes, and you have to drive the last half a mile at 5 miles an hour, and people are driving by and honking at you. And you're embarrassed, and you're like freaking out, and you're hoping you get there safe, and all you can do is continue to trust that God knows where he's sending you, and that he's going to protect you as you go on this mission, this adventure with him. You guys are in junior high and high school. Within 10 years, you guys are going to be on a completely different adventure in your life. And most of you have somewhat of a plan, and most of you, that plan will look nothing like what it looks like now. And 10 years from now, it will be completely different. And that's okay. We continue to listen to where God is calling us, and he's saying, go. But here's what we can't do. We can't sit in our comfortable, squishy lives and go, okay, God, Me and you are good, right? I'm not going to do anything. See, he took Abraham and he said, I'm going to take you out of your house. More than that, I'm going to take you out of your country, and I'm calling you to go. I'm calling you to something greater. And it's not for you to be amazing. It wasn't for him to be this amazing guy and do amazing things all the time. It was go, trust me, and honor me through your actions. Each and every one of us has the same call. We are called to go and make disciples. We are called to go and serve him. You don't have to be a pastor. You don't have to work for a church. You can do the things that you love to do, the things you're passionate about, the gifts you have, and use those to honor God. Use those gifts to show other people how great and amazing he is. When I was in school, I had a guy come in, a guest professor, and he came in, he was talking to us, and we had no idea who this guy was. We showed up to class one day, and we're sitting there, and my teacher's like, hey, I'm bringing this guy in. He's going to talk to you just about his life with the Lord and stuff like that. And this guy had a crazy story. He had done mission trips to Africa and all over the world, and he had points where he and his group were literally running out of a village for their lives. Because people were coming after them. People had heard that they were there. They were not welcome in this area. So they were being chased out, and they were running for their life to try and get out of the country and get back home so that they would live and be able to see their family and stuff again. So this guy's telling these stories, and it's insane, right? And you're like, wow, that's really cool. And you ask him what he's doing now, and I expect like he's a pastor or this or that. And he's like, oh, I run a business now. And I'm like, well, that's different. I'm like, in Africa, homeless, like this crazy amount of just destruction and violence that you're dealing with, and you're dealing with missionary people, and I'm like, how did you all of a sudden just decide you're going to own and run a business? And it's a very successful business at that. And he said, well, I was able to do that, and then God called me to do this, and now I have 50 people that work underneath me, and I get to minister to them each and every day. And I was like, oh, his adventure looked completely different than mine. And yet he was still ministering to people and loving people. And he had people that were working for him, employees, that had never heard the gospel before, and he was getting to preach it to them. So if you love to draw. Honor God through that. If you love to play an instrument, do that. If you're really good at a sport, do that. Listen to where he's calling you to go, where he's saying, hey, let's go. We're going on an adventure. And then jump on board and let's go. All right, God, where are we going? And when he says, I'll tell you later, keep walking. Go, all right, God, this is terrifying, but I'll trust you. I will trust you. I've told this story before, but we went on a backpacking trip, and I've done it 2 times, and the first time was like terrifying because I'd never done it before, right? So you're like, no idea what to experience, new experience, 5 days in the woods. What if there's bears or wolves or whatever, right? And I survived. So I was like, I'm an expert at it now. I can do this all the time. So my second one, we're going, and I'm like, guys, don't worry about it. Nothing bad will happen. I promise. We've done this before. And all of a sudden, we ran out of water. After like the first 6 hours, there was no more water. And I'm like, God, you're making me look bad. First of all, like now I'm a liar because I said nothing bad was going to happen. So if you could bring some water, that would be great, right? And he said no. And so we are still like dehydrated and dying by the end of the night. And I was like, I threw up from dehydration, which makes it worse, right? You're literally throwing up. And then I couldn't eat, and there was no water to drink. And we each like rationed out our water, and we had like this much water, and it had to last us through the night into the next day. And I'm like, okay, God, this isn't fun anymore. Like, we paid for this. We're paying to be tortured like this, right? And so I was not excited about finishing the trip. And it was funny that here we were in the wilderness, paying to go on this journey, paying to be able to experience God and his greatness and his glory. And he was giving us a moment to trust in him by going, I provide the water. You'll get there when I let you get there. And we're like complaining about it every step of the way, like, oh, I'm sad, I want water, and blah, blah, blah. And we finally got water, and I've never been more thankful and more like, oh my gosh, God, thank you for water. Because we have water every day. Like, you just go to any fountain anywhere around here and get water, clean water. This was the first time in my life I had experienced where there wasn't water around. And then we saw a little bit of water, and it's like, you don't want to drink that. That's nasty. You'll get some nasty diseases. So it's like, oh, but I really want it. He's like, nope, keep walking. And when we got to the water, when we were able to actually drink, man, it was amazing. God provided on our adventure. And then later, as we continue to trust him and go, we got to experience the most beautiful scene I've probably ever seen. Scenery that was just absolutely gorgeous. And we got to see a moose with only one antler thing. And it was terrifying because they're huge. Right? And it was like, I had this plan for this experience of like, I'm going to see an animal. And then we finally saw an animal, and it was not fun. And I was like, and they were like, shut up, don't move. And they're like, he will charge at you. And they're telling us, like quietly whispering us what to do when a moose charges at you, which is never a conversation I ever thought I'd have in my lifetime, right? Like, you didn't know moose or meese or whatever you call them charge at you, right? And this one only had one antler, and they're like, yeah, that's probably because he like attacked somebody and ran at them. And I'm like, that's not comforting to hear, right? And you're like, we're going to camp right over there. And you're like, but the moose is here. Like, this is his home, right? And I was terrified. And they're like, it'll be fine. And I'm like, you said that about the water. Right? Like, I was still not trusting. And then later we saw the moose again, and he was just swimming through the little lake. And it was so cool. It was a beautiful scene to see. But on our adventures, there's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be blown out tires. There's going to be times when you're out of water. And all of those are moments, not to complain. There are moments to trust in God and go, okay, God, you called me to go. I listened. You'll provide. I know you will. I know you will. It's hard to trust, but I know you'll provide. So as you continue to grow, as you continue to pray, as you continue to do stuff, ask God, okay, God, where are we going? Because the only way we start to grow in our relationship with God is when we move outside of our comfort zone. We say, okay, God, I'm ready to go. I'm going to move out of my comfort zone. Where are we going? And in those moments when you're outside your comfort zone and you're hitting turbulence, when things are going wrong, you're able to grow. When everything's easy and nice, you're not going to grow. You're just sitting in this protective bubble, and it's nice and it's safe. You got to move outside of that in order to grow. And it's scary. It's really scary. But we have to do it. If we want our relationship with God to grow, we have to move outside that comfort zone. On that same trip, I'll end with this story. On that same trip, one of the nights, we were staying in the same spot for 2 nights, and it had rained like crazy, so all the ground was all muddy and wet, and the tents we have weren't really like tents that are normal, like set-up tents. It was literally just like a tarp that we put a pole in and we staked it to the ground. So there was no floor. We just kind of like put stuff on the floor, and that was the floor. So that meant there was holes from the side of the tent to the bottom. And one of the nights decided, God thought it would be fun to soak us because he decided to dehydrate us. And then 2 nights later, he poured more rain than I'd ever seen in my entire life. It was terrifying. And also it was really windy. And it was so windy that I thought the tent was just going to fly away, and we were just going to be stuck like sleeping out in the rain. And the tent was like flapping like crazy, and the girls' tent started to leak water, and it was like running through. And so they were like screaming like for us to come help. And there was this moment where all of us guys were like sitting there, right? Picture this. It's hilarious. So they're in their tent, we're in our tent. And there's this moment where like we're completely dry still. We're like, our tent is built perfect. Like, we are safe. And the girls are like, the water's getting in our tent. And they're like screaming bloody murder. So at this point, I'm like, either the moose is going to attack or he's fleeing because his high-pitched screams. And like all of us guys are sitting, we're playing cards, right? And we're like looking at each other like, do we go and help? Right? Like, I don't really want to go at this point because it's really wet out there and muddy. And so finally we're like, okay, let's do this. And we like unzip the tent and we go running out. We're like trying to restake down the girls' tent, but everything's muddy and it's just falling apart. And like the girls are crying and we're like, we're crying now. It's just this big giant mess, right? And you can't tell who's crying because there's so much rain. And you're like banging, like we had rocks and Alex Miles, some of you guys know him. He's holding the stake and I'm like hitting it with a rock and then the stake just bent in half. And I was like, and he just starts laughing hysterically. It was a mess, right? And I was like, what is going on with this adventure? And finally, you get to the point where like, it was so ridiculous, we just started to laugh. We're like, what is happening? We had this perfect plan of like, I was going to stay dry in my nice tent, and it did not work, right? And we went out and we helped the girls. You have the call, like, okay, God, we'll go listen. Like, we'll go help the girls because we're supposed to. And we do it, and then we fix their tent, and we're like, our tent was fine. Like, we're big, strong men, right? And then later that night, we put a bunch of rocks to hold their tent down. Later that night, our tent decided, like, it was just going to collapse on itself in the middle of the night. And no girls came to help us. They're all dry in their area. And literally, one of our guys, I told you there's just a pole in the center, right? He's sleeping, holding the pole, leaning against it to keep our tent up. And we were like rotating. And then eventually, I leaned up against the other side of the pole to hold him up and the tent up. So we're leaning against each other, like his head's on one side of the pole, mine's on the other. We're like sitting up, sleeping, shivering, because everything is wet. And we woke up the next morning, and it wasn't like, that was the worst night of my life. It was like, what the heck? That was horrible. But we were laughing about it, we were smiling, and we were together. See, we went through an adventure like I've never gone through before, but I did it with people I love, people I care about. And while we trust God through the whole thing, even though it was traumatizing and it made me never want to go camping with those people again, it was a journey and it grew me. It grew me so much. It was outside my comfort zone. And I look back at that trip and I go, man, overall that was still fun. I'll still do it again. Not just because it was beautiful, because God grew me so much. And I want to continue to go on these adventures where God is calling me to go, and I listen and he can grow me through them. We all should be growing through those. It's not just about reading your Bible. It's not just about praying. We go on this adventure with God and we learn through the trials and the tough times and the good times and the bad. Let's pray. God, thank you for today. Thank you that we have the ability to go on this journey with you. We don't have to travel this path on our own, God, but you walk side by side with us, God. We are so thankful for that. God, help us. Show us where you want us to go. Show us where you want us to grow, God. We love you so much, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. All right. High school boys back there, high school girls up here, junior high boys back there, junior high girls up here for small groups. Oh, yeah, and at the end of our time together, once all the groups are done, please help restack the chairs on the dolly things. Don't stack them on the ground, stack them on the dolly things over there.